What I am going to ask is, are one of you able to turn on the recording? It has started. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to week 2. Sorry about my technological issues. I probably didn't log out when I should have from all of my Office 365. And so it is got me logged in as a student, but now I get to experience it just like you do. So that's the bright side of it. I am going to go ahead and take us straight into our visual. So I know that you should be able to see my screen right now, according to the notes that I'm getting on my desktop. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I'm sure everyone had very full weeks, and the top highlight of your week was to get back to us in organizational leadership and see what was going to happen in chapters 2 and 3. Correct? I was excited to see you all this morning. My morning, you're not in morning. When I was going through the information today, I want to make sure first that you all have the link. It's the same link from last week. Any issues with logging in to the OneDrive if you choose to? Okay. I'm taking the silence as a no issues. So we're looking over these next couple of hours about leadership equation and the qualities, characteristics we have of leaders and followers and situational factors. So you all have already reviewed the slide decks, and so I'm going to go straight into our objectives. We're looking at this as a unit, chapter 2 and chapter 3, because they're relational. And we're looking at what really impacts our effectiveness while gaining greater understanding of our traits and behaviors as leaders, and then assessing many qualities, but definitely the 10 qualities that distinguish a person as a leader. There were a lot of self-assessments in these 2 chapters, so we're not going to do all of them today, but we're going to engage with a couple of them in a different way. We're also looking at really knowing our impact of what negative leadership has on behavior and being sure that we realize when we're susceptible to leadership influence. And that means as leaders, there's quite often opportunity to be influenced by others without us even realizing it. And then obviously leaders will influence as well. And we want to look at situations where you're most prone to lead, and then also think about our natural kind of intelligences and how that builds into our leadership strengths. So there's a lot that intertwines between these 2 chapters. And we're going to go ahead and look at it through the questions of how well do we really know ourselves as leaders, and what are our natural tendencies of how we approach leadership. Are we transformative? Are we a bit destructive? Are we a little bit in between? And recognizing, knowing is the beginning of opportunity to make a change or leverage that to be a better leader. I had to smile because many of you were with me during organizational behavior studies, and we discussed the dark triad, and it has returned today. So I look forward to having more conversation about that. But let's go into our trait behaviors and contingencies. Before we open up the Mentimeter, I wanted to just scroll down here for a minute and let you know that there is a brief video here on contingency leadership that we'll revisit. But first, I want to go in to Mentimeter. We're going to do one engagement, and then we're going to step out of Mentimeter, and then we're going to go back into it for additional engagements. So I have it open here, and I have the instructions. So let's go ahead and get everybody logged in. You should be able to see the instructions on your screen. Oop, 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 oop. That is not what we wanted to do. There we go. Can you just verify with me that you can see these instructions on your screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to give you a minute to get logged in, and then we'll start with our first question.
This code is different from the one and the note, OneNote, right?
It should. Oh, it should have been the same code, so I apologize if it's different.
Yes, because when I used it, it gave me a wrong page, I guess.
Okay, then I am going to make a note of that so that I can change that in OneNote when I go back to that screen later on. Thank you. I was not aware of that.
Can we share again the one at the beginning of the Mentimeter presentation?
You should be able to see. Let me see if I can go back.
Yes, it is at the top of the page 3685 to 111.
Yes. And it should be on.
Actually, it did not request the codes.
I'm sorry?
It did not request the codes.
It didn't request the code this time?
Yes, I just scanned the QR code.
Yes.
And then it is self-rating, low to high of traits.
Yep.
And some.
That's what we're going to next. Okay. Thank you. That's this. So you're
but
going
you cannot see this page. It is not this page what you are showing. It is just like questions or something need for
Correct.
improvement, need for achievement, something like that.
Yes, correct. This is what when you self-rate on those traits from low to high that have a bar for you to select, it will show up on this web. That's how that's going to work.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. So we're just looking at a few of those traits that were mentioned in chapter 2. And when you self-rate on the bar ratings, it's going to move our web in regards to where our strengths are as a group versus your individual results. This is about all of us combined. So I'm going to give you a minute to see if it moves when different people complete it. And we're looking at the traits of our self-need for achievement. If it's important for us to be portrayed as intelligence, decisive, self-confident, taking initiative, and supervisory abilities. So far, the two lower ends are intelligence and supervisory ability across the group. Oh, we have decisiveness down there too now. Not too low though, it's still within a range of being highly productive. Confidence is great. Lots of high. I think we have a couple of people who still haven't had a chance to complete the ratings. Maybe one more. Okay, I saw it bounce a little bit, so we have some similarities here. So what's important for us to know as a class, and if we were a complex organization that we were leading, is where our employees see themselves in their traits, as well as where we see ourselves. And we may have some blind spots. And so it's important. So if we are very confident, but we feel like we're not intelligent, that could kind of show up in our negative leadership, because we might try to overcompensate and be more powerful. Or we could recognize it as an area that we have people that we hire that are intelligent, and we're going to ensure a shared leadership approach so that people can feel more ownership of the work that's taking place and recognize that we all bring strengths to the table. So there's different ways for us to look at these different traits and how they impact us as leaders and those that we lead. What would be really interesting would be if you had a huge project coming in and you needed to rely on your key employees and initiative was low, then you would have to compensate for that as a leader to support them in staying on track and keeping the momentum of the project moving forward. If decisiveness popped in as being a lower scoring item, then you would look at it as making sure that you are very clear on your communication and that you support employees in gaining strategies to be more decisive. So for yourself, if you don't have the tendency to be decisive, you can use those strategies for yourself so that you can portray decisiveness in a stronger way. Or you can put in strategies that encompass other people that you're building up as leaders to support you in being decisive and making that final decision. So there's lots of different ways that our traits will play with each other. And when we look at it for an organizational results versus an individual result, it really is helpful to know yourself as a leader and then to also recognize the leadership coming up within your organization. Generally, when we do different rating scales like this, we will take a comparison from our individual leaders or individual employees in comparison to the norm of the group to see where we can help build and support each other in setting goals in becoming stronger leaders so that they can come up and help the company be successful. So that is traits. Any questions about traits before we move out of the Mentimeter for a minute?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone, yes, everyone, or not everyone, but many of us, they thought that they are good leaders, or they have good initiatives to start with and something like that. But sometimes when somebody more expert or more has more experience in something, he will think that, no, I am not the best one to do this initiative or something like that. How can we, is there any like tests or evaluation methods to show that this person is having the minimum requirement of capabilities that can do a task, for example, depending on the different scopes of this decisiveness or intelligence or like that? Is there any kind of evaluation that can help?
There are different evaluations, you know, in the last course. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
No. My mobile just spoke itself, the iPhone. He started to talk myself.
Okay, no problem. I was like, wait a minute, I missed an important part. Thank you. Yeah, there are all different kinds of assessments that we can use for that. Now, we are going to do something different either at the end of the time together today or as a part of your work between now and next week. And that is your approach, your characteristic as a leader, and it will help you understand what lens your leaders are approaching the work through. And that will help you then break it down into, is this a person who would, based off of their archetype, be one who would take initiative? Or is this a person who would be more decisive in the work? So we are going to do something like that, and we're going to be using it in the course for you to gain a better understanding of the power behind using something like that in your workplace. But I think that it's also important to remember that what is being reported on these ratings is our own perception of ourselves. Okay, so I might think I'm highly intelligent and that I have supervisory abilities, but it may turn out that I'm not as intelligent or capable of supervising as I believe I am. And that's why we bring in, instead of only like this quantitative, this is a good place to start, but we have to bring in the qualitative information that we experience on a regular basis with our employees or with our leaders. And that's by getting feedback from others. That's by recognizing the goals that they're setting and how that's directly impacting the outcomes of the company. There's lots of different ways for us to triangulate data to help us continue to see the strength of individuals as leaders and what areas they need more support or growth in. Does that answer your question?
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Because it is also important to note that someone may be an incredible leader, like tick all the boxes on paper, but their lack of ability to communicate and have relationship in a way that moves the project forward could be a real hindrance. So it is very environment based, and we read a little bit about that this week too in the chapter reading. So I'm going to minimize in hopes that I don't lose this completely, but we will come back to it. Let's see, there we go. Okay, now, so that was the quality of traits, and there were a few action or behavior questions in there about our actions as well. If you want to do the full assessment, those directions are in the textbook. There were a lot of assessments in the textbook this week. So I caution you on taking time to do all of them. You may become very overwhelmed. I did really like how the textbook brought in some examples when we look at qualities that we want in a leader of intelligence or values or energy. Some examples that they offered were like George Washington or Steve Jobs. And then when we went into behaviors, people who take action, it's interesting that the definition of this has been evolving over time, but examples modern day would be for actions based off of task would be Bill Gates. And then for actions based off of relationship would be Nelson Mandela. So our traits and our behaviors are definitely going to impact the outcomes that we receive from our leadership. So the case study that was in the textbook I found really intriguing and thought it would be a great conversation. Now we're not going to be able to do it in breakout groups like I had hoped because I am logged in as a student. But what I do want to do is give you a moment to read it. You have access to it here in OneNote, and you also have access to it in your textbook. But it's from chapter 2, and it's about the qualities of leaders and the characteristics of followers and the nature of the situation. And I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but I'm going to give you about 15 minutes, and I will set a timer and you'll hear that go off in 15 minutes, and I'll check to see if you need a little bit more time. But I encourage you to go down to the bottom and read the 3 questions first, and choose one to focus your reading on. So we're looking at how we might be able to help each of these 3 people be effective supervisors. So if I'm going to read through the lens of, is it Mr. Black or yeah, Mr. Black, then I'll go back up to the top and I'll read through and think about Mr. Black and what I could do to help him be an effective supervisor. And we'll take 15 minutes. I'll start the timer now. And I'll check back with you if you need a little bit more time for thinking. And we will just bypass the breakout rooms and do this individually. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic, and I will turn it back on just before the timer gets ready to go off. Enjoy your reading. Okay, that's our time. Now let's see how we can help the 3 past associates, Black, Blue, and White, become more effective supervisors based off of what you've learned so far and your own experiences. Who's going to go ahead and start us off?
I can start.
Thank you.
I will not give too much details, but it seemed that the 3 supervisors are having a lack of leadership traits. As mentioned, that Black is always against organization, Blue is always snowed with work, and White is a permissive leader. So I guess the solution for the 3, the first one, the Black, I think he need to be motivated from the side of the company a bit via intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, and they have to elaborate for them for him the behind scenes, so he would be fully aware of what is happening, to not see what they are deciding about his superiors. Of course, that they are in the wrong track always. It's not always Black. Of course, they have a point of view in what the company is doing. For Blue and White, I think they need some training, because being snowed in work for Blue, I think this means that he cannot separate the tasks and supervise them doing these tasks. So he have to learn how to subdivide the tasks and monitor each of his teams, each member of his team. And for the permissive leader, he have to take a training about how to lead the team and how to be assertive, more assertive with them and rule his team in a better way. So this is my point of view.
Thank you for sharing your point of view. Now I'm going to let you select someone to go next. Anyone of your choice.
I don't want to be a bad person, but I guess Ahmed Awad will be ready as usual.
Thank you for doing that. I can't see everyone while I have my screen shared in view, so I appreciate you helping me out there.
Okay. Actually, I was not going to participate that much. I'm not just feeling well, but anyway, for Mr. Black, I agree with Nuran in the point that he should understand the direction of the company, what the company needs as well. Okay, so he will not be against it, because once he get to know, once he has more knowledge about what's happening and what is the employee right and employee responsibilities, he can have more understanding. Okay, for Miss Blue, she's snowed under her work. She need training, but she need, from my point of view, she need training on how to give like delegation to responsibility for her team. Of course, yes, it's a teamwork, and eventually she is the one who will get blamed if there is any mistake. But she need to start giving her team some space, some, as I said, delegation, a way to take decisions and take responsibility for their work.
Okay.
For Mr. White, yes, he needs to be more assertive. He needs to understand that he is a supervisor. He cannot give everyone their own space and what they do, and he cannot take from them any bad behavior, even if it is required to do some disciplinary action. Okay, but he needs. I'm not saying that he should be abusing them or be bad, but he need to be more strong.
Okay. Okay, so that's some great perspectives. Now I'm going to have you do that. I'm not saying anything. I'm taking a few notes, and I will say something after we get a few different perspectives shared. So if you would be so kind as to elect or select someone else to share their perspective.
Okay, I would select Olena.
Thank you, Ahmed. I knew it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Regarding the first manager, Mr. Black, I would say, and I fully agree that the issue is that he has like no vision view, and he's not like he doesn't see the goal of the company, and this is the first what I would suggest, to work on his communicate with him and to work on mission, vision, values of the company, and to make sure that he's encouraged properly and he received trust and respect as a manager of the company. For Miss Blue and the last one, White, I would suggest also either additional education and encouraging in development of their leadership and managerial skills, mostly managerial, because it's things that they have lack of delegation knowledge, how to delegate, how to how to move their teams and how to inspire their teams. So there are two ways how to. So basically, in my mind, all of them require proper mentoring and clear understanding of the business and the values of the business and the company.
Thank
It's
you.
for me.
Thank you. Okay. You all are making some really great points. I'm going to have you go ahead and select or elect one more person. We're going to do this 2 more times, and then I have a few notes that I'm going to share with you all as well.
Okay, I choose Samia.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Professor. So as I read, my understanding is that Mr. Black, I mean, if I am the supervisor of all these 3 supervisors, I would first schedule a one-on-one with Mr. Black. And I would like to know that what is his reasoning behind the complaints against organization. So why he's always complaining about the organization structure. Maybe there is something going on in his professional life, or or in his personal life, which I know I cannot change that, but at least I can support him emotionally or mentally somehow. Then I will point him towards his complaints and how it can really impact his performance in the organization and his team's performance in the organization. Um, and then I would, rather than really point him and direct him to become a problem solver than a complainer. So that so because he needs to really understand the organizational ethics and really need training to be more efficient in that. Then when it comes to Miss Blue, I believe that she really needs to let her team take initiative sometime, because if she's taking all the load herself and not really letting her team work on their tasks, so I would ask her to give her team more independence to be able to really work on their task and become more independent. And maybe training, or maybe just a few sessions with her would be helpful. Then when it comes to Mr. White, I would like him to understand his leadership strengths so that he can bring those leadership skills in front of his team. And maybe he also needs to take some disciplinary actions towards his team members so that they don't take him for granted, but yet he needs to really help and support his team so that they follow the right process. So that's what I think I would like to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm writing down something because you just gave me a great thought. I appreciate it. So one more, if you could elect or select one more voice to be heard on their perspective.
Sure. I will call out Mohammed Matar.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Hello. Okay. Should I give also my opinion about our 3 supervisors or 3 people?
Yes,
right?
that would be wonderful.
Okay. So if I'm the manager and I have 3 colleagues who are black, blue, and white, and they were they are among my teammates, and I became their supervisor right now, and I want to work with them. Okay. So actually, they know first of all that I am okay and I am good enough to do my job. This is part of the thing. So I think that they will listen to me a little bit when I started to discuss with them my findings after checking, because I know them, I was working with them, so I know each one of them, what is their performance. So Mr. Black, I just would tell him that it is a company. At last, it is a company, and you should respect the decision of the upper management. I know that you are beside the employee and you like to stay beside them hand by hand, but at last you are one of the gears inside the company, And every time you disrespect or you don't like the decisions from the higher management, this will make the higher management upset also from you, and this will make you do not like or the work, as it seems also from the text here that he is working and he doesn't like the work. And this is very obvious, because if I'm always complaining against the company, so always the company management will dislike me, and he will feel it for sure. So he has to change his mindset a little bit to respect the upper management decisions, and at last this will make the upper management like his way of working, and then he will like the work, and even this will be even benefit or more beneficial for the colleagues that he is standing beside them. So this will be my first advice for him. Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Blue. Should I continue, or it's enough for Black?
No, you go ahead and continue. We're on Miss Blue next.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Miss Blue, I have to pay her attention. This giving the empowerment to your subordinate is very important, because I'm sure that you are taking care of the work yourself, and I'm sure that you want the work is accurate and perfect as you want it to be. But take care that you will put yourself inside this position only, and even you will not have any opportunity for higher position, because you do not create under you some other people that can do the work and can be even good as you. Because if you create some people good like you, this will give you the opportunity to be in higher positions, and it is better for you, for them, and for the company. So I will just advise her, if you want to be a good supervisor, I believe that you should take care for empowering your people or your subordinates. It's very important. Mr. White, you are very nice, and your character is many people will like it, because you are not giving any restriction to any of your employees, but at last it is your responsibility as well, because you are the supervisor, and people, they need somebody to manage and somebody to train and somebody to take care of themselves, and at last it is your responsibility. So to somehow you are giving the full empowerment, but there should be a limit, because at last it is your responsibility. So if you need to take care of yourself, you should limit a little bit your empowerment, and give an example, a good example to the people how to do the work in empowerment, but with some limits. This is what I would advise all of them.
All right, thank you, because you added a couple of additional points. And thank you all that shared out. I appreciate your thoughtfulness in the responses and incorporation of where we're at so far within the learnings and your experiences. It's interesting because I think that these scenarios are going to keep coming back in our minds now as we add additional learning. And a few things that I wanted to point out to the group is, when I look at case studies like this, I know that I specifically gave you the direction to look at the questions of how would you help Mr. Black, Miss Blue, or Mr. White become an effective supervisor. And that was your lens. But I want to also encourage you as leaders to always pay attention to what's in front of you, but also what's in the margins, or what are you not seeing? If you zoomed out from the text and looked at it as a whole page or a whole system, there are some things that you might take into consideration with your decisions, and some of you did take into considerations with your decisions. So let me give you a few examples. I noticed right away that several of these people were your former equals. So you're being promoted, and you're going to now be overseeing people who recognize your behaviors and traits as a leader, and then also know maybe your shortcomings in that. So it's important to be aware of building that relationship when you move from being an equal to being in a leadership role with others. And then also the and we're going to go back to the contingency. The fact that the rest of the associates are all right. You know that the rest of them are doing okay. These three are just bubbling up, and doing a check on what's causing them to bubble up to your attention in comparison to the rest of the people. So that would cause you to really connect to what strengths you had as a leader to be honored with this middle management position, and what areas are you still growing and developing in that you may be able to learn alongside in a way with these three, or the strengths that you have that will help you to manage them in a different way than they had been in the past. And then that brings me to their history of performance, because I always believe that we can learn from history in order to look forward and move forward to where the company goal is going. And data is a huge game changer in that. And data really helps to change behavior. So any opportunity for Mr. Black or Miss Blue or Mr. White to bring in data from past performance or from their department's growth might be really helpful, because it doesn't personalize it only to them. It helps them to see their role in that bigger picture. Like I said, it helps them to zoom out from their department or their work to the bigger picture. And then the last thing that I had written down was really making sure, we just talked about what's influencing us as leaders, and really making sure that our motivation to impress upper management isn't causing us to have blinders on with regards to potentially putting any of them on notice. And that would require more information, obviously, in regards to why we were selected for this position and what the goals are for the company, and what our head management is really looking that first level, not the first level, the head management is looking for in regards to outcomes from these different associates and supervisors. So I do think that there's an opportunity for our confidence to come into play that we were talking about a little bit ago, and being able to really think about why we were selected for this position and how we can either move these three forward so they can be successful like the rest of the people, or start putting them on notice that they won't continue to work in this way if they plan to stay with the company. So I really do encourage you all to look at look at what's in front of you, but look at what is on the outer edge too, like zoom out as a leader, and it will help you to know if you have missing pieces of information that you need to collect or gather, or you would want to know more of in order to make an informed decision and be more decisive, or if you are on the right track with what you have in front of you and are moving forward. Any questions about that? I'm taking your silence as a no questions. Just tell me, does that make sense? I know that it wasn't what you were asked to do, and so I'm not saying that you approached it wrong, because you definitely like fed into a lot of my thinking. But
Certainly, Professor.
yes.
You're saying that we should look at the history, at the data, right?
Yes.
But since, okay, assume I'm the one got promoted. So I have been working with blue and black and white for a long time, and we almost share the same history. Am I right or wrong?
Partially correct, yes. And I'm saying
Okay.
partially. Do you want to know why I'm saying partially?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm saying partially because that's the qualitative data that you have with regards to how they go about the work. But you can bring in quantitative data about
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
if I understood you correct, what I have is the social information, right?
Correct.
From interacting with them. But
Mhm.
in this case, I need data regarding the quality of work they did, which is, I will not know all of it, of course, right?
Of course. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now
Yes.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so you wouldn't necessarily have had data, quantitative data for their areas that they're supervising available to you previously, right? Because you were
Yes, correct.
equal to them. So taking that information, like, so for example, when we talk about Miss Blue and really carrying all the work on her shoulders and not delegating and correcting mistakes for her employees or the people who she's supervising herself, instead of going having supporting them in becoming more competent, perhaps her data and the lack of growth of individuals in her department, or the outcomes being late or not being met. There might be something in that quantitative data that you could add to that social data that you already have that would help you in supporting her to move
So
forward.
we can say,
Yes.
that her current attitude might be a reflect, or a reflect for an incident happen before,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Uh-huh.
Correct.
And
Yes.
we can apply the same principle for the other
Absolutely.
black and white.
Mhm.
Okay, now the picture is getting more clearer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then that gives you a different piece of information to help any one of them set their goals to be more successful. And then you will be able to see the breakdown of why success isn't happening, or the impact of that change of learning from their past and bringing in your social and quantitative data to be able to help them move forward. Absolutely.
Professor,
Clear.
Yes.
but I have a comment on this part actually, because from my point of view as a leader, I think even if somebody make a mistake or something, or they are not performing the way I am thinking about, so I'm just handling the thing because my team is not handling in the way I think it should be. This
Mhm.
is part of being a leader, that I have to make them learn. They have to take a space to learn, to defend them for the good and bad. It is not a leader characteristic to just handle the things because he is afraid of the mistake that might be done by his team. You have to give them a chance to learn and be in his position one day. So, and by analogy for the other leaders, this is my point of view.
Yes, no, absolutely. And what's difficult when you're coming into this middle management position is Miss Blue has been allowed to function that way. because in the text somewhere it says that they've all been with the company for a long time. You know, she's not new. This isn't new behavior. It's been acceptable or looked over along the way. So yes, it is not a characteristic of a leader to do the work and correct the mistakes of others. But by really being well informed and not just going off of what you've experienced with the person, but giving them something to connect their lack of success or success to, is really important in order for change to not just occur begrudgingly and then she becomes Mr. Black, you know, the anti-company supervisor. You want her to take on a persona that is feeling more successful herself and valuing and honoring the success of her employees by empowering them to do the work instead of doing it for them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else in regards to our case study? Okay, I'm just going to back up for 1 minute and take us down here to this quick contingency leadership, just so that it can articulate a little bit more about what I'm saying about developing a wider lens or a systems approach to your leadership.
Let's take a look at contingency leadership theories. Both the trait and behavioral leadership theories were attempts to find the one best leadership style in all situations. In the late 1960s, it became apparent that there's no one best leadership style for all situations. Contingency leadership theories assume that the appropriate leadership style varies from situation to situation. Contingency, also called situational leadership, is based on two-dimensional behaviors. The major difference is selecting the appropriate leadership style based on the person and the situational factors. Changes in the dynamic environment may require changes in leadership styles, and the frequency of checking on employees varies based on the situation. In 1951, Fred E. Fielder began to develop the first situational leadership theory. He called the theory contingency theory of leaders' effectiveness. Fielder believed that one's leadership style was a reflection of one's personality, trait theory oriented, and is basically constant. Leaders do not change styles. Contingency leadership theory is used to determine whether a person's leadership style is task or relationship oriented and if the situation matches the leader's style. If there's no match, Fielder recommends that the leader change the situation rather than the leadership style. The first major factor to determine whether one's leadership style is task or relationship oriented. To do so, the leader fills out the least preferred coworker LPC scales. This is followed by determining the favorableness of the leader's situation. Situational favorableness refers to the degree to which the situation enables the leader to exert influence over followers. The more favorable the situation, the more power the leader has. There are three variables in order of importance. Leader-member relations. Is the relationship good or poor? The better the relations, the more favorable the situation. Task structure. Is the task structured or unstructured? The more structured the jobs are, the more favorable the situation. And position power. Is position power strong or weak? The more power, the more favorable the situation. To determine whether task or relationship leadership is appropriate, the user answers the 3 questions pertaining to situational favorableness.
Okay, so I think that that's a good time for us to stop and take a breather and reflect on the learning so far today, before we come back and go into transformational leadership. So it's 10:14 right now. Let's just take a 10-minute stretch break. Stretch your brain, stretch your body, get yourself some water, whatever you need. And we will come back. It's 10:14 my time, Eastern time. We will come back at 10:24 and move into transformational leadership, which will take us back into the Mentimeter. I'll see you back in 10 minutes. So I hope everybody got a chance to really think about the case study itself and the contingencies, trait, and behaviors, and how that all plays a role into our learning. If we remember, we want to make sure that we're looking at qualities that distinguish us as a leader, and the experiences that we just had were offering us the opportunity to look at our decision making and affirm or extend how we approach our leadership. So welcome back. We're going to move into transformational leadership, and then why would anyone want to be led by me? And then we'll return to the Mentimeter. So first, with transformational leadership, you all are going to get an opportunity to experience leading in a transformational way with your first project for this course. And I'm going to give you more details about that in next week's session. But we might have time at the end of today. I'm not 100% sure that we'll have time though, but for sure in next week's session, we'll talk about what that's going to look like. And for today, with regards to our learnings in the readings and bringing our life experiences in, when we look at transformational leadership, it's pretty dominant in a way that you can't help but notice it. People are quite ambitious when they're transformational. They have that self-confidence that we spoke of as a trait earlier, and a strong sense of purpose, which drives their behaviors. So they tend to really allow their beliefs and values to model what they want their followers to adopt. They also have an ability to elicit respect from people, and there's moral overtones within all of their ideological goals. We communicate as a transformational leader high expectations and show confidence in the ability of those that follow us in meeting those expectations. So it would be great to see, was it Miss White or Blue, to become a transformational leader and really have high expectations for those who she leads. And then a transformational leader also ignites that motivation and has people just naturally wanting to take action and bring innovative approaches to the table. So some examples of people modern day who are transformational leaders would be Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, Elon Musk. There's a lot of controversy around him right now, but his initial work with Tesla and much more. Reed Hastings, Satya Nadella, Oprah Winfrey, Malala Yousafzai. I don't know that I said her last name correctly. Madonna and Michelle Obama are just a few examples. Can you think of anyone else who would be a transformational leader in your eyes? Just go ahead and speak it out. someone who leads their movement based off of their strong beliefs and confidence in what they value and have people adopt. Any other transformational leaders that you're familiar with or want to add for the consideration of this?
Yes,
Yes.
we already discussed him last week. I forgot his name. I'm sorry, but we discussed. No, not Malcolm X. Someone else.
Was it when we were talking about the rulers?
Martin Luther King, you mean?
Yeah, Martin Luther King. Yes.
Yes, definitely. Transfer. Okay, I thought you were bringing back up the conversation about the rulers. Okay, yes, Martin Luther King was definitely a transformational leader. Great connection.
I have a question here.
Yes, absolutely.
Should our leader who is having transformational leadership should reach to success, or only he is dominant, he is ambitious, or it should combine also with success at the end of his leadership?
Yeah, what's interesting with transformational leaders is success is generally always evolving, because they are always evolving and their impact on the world is always being increased or heightening. So like it's yes, success is an element of importance, but how they define success may look very different to some than to others. So I'm trying to think, like if you take the difference between Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey can definitely speak of success in regards to typical corporate success with finances and hitting certain numbers of investors and making a very lucrative success of her transformational leadership style. But like Michelle Obama, it wasn't necessarily a financial success or a corporate success. It was an impact success on people. So yes, success is a measure or related to their work or their approach. I think success, though, is determined a bit differently for them than it would be in a lot of the corporate markers, if you will.
Or impact, as you said.
Yes.
And instead of success, we can say it's impact. They have high impact or on people, on their lives, on their ideas, on their mind, something like that. But it is not at the end must be reflected into numbers.
Yes, and quite often, what we can agree on here is that monetary success has followed for the majority of these people on the list in a way that they probably never imagined, but that was not their goal. And that happens a lot in transformational leadership. It's about the people and the change that you can make on society or on the world, on the environment. And those are things that are always evolving. And so they can have success markers, but their work will always continue to evolve. You know, if you think about Oprah Winfrey, she started with news reporting and then her talk show, and became a I think she might even be a billionaire now, but at least a multimillionaire in regards to her not just having like TV shows, but having an entire station, you know, not just like having a talk show, but really highlighting people and the change in the world. So things that could be seen from other networks as being lucrative, having a talk show that has cooking in it, for example. Oprah would always take it to another level because it would be about nourishing your body, nourishing your soul, and having that relational component to her success markers. Does that help with the role of success in transformational leadership?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And so then let's look at, and then we'll go into the Mentimeter in a minute. Like, why would anyone want to be led by you? This is just a self-reflection portion for you to revisit throughout the course. And it takes those leadership qualities of vision and ability and enthusiasm and stability, concern for others, self-confidence, persistence, vitality, charisma, and integrity. And in the textbook, you can evaluate yourself or someone you know on all of these traits, all these characteristics. But what I want you to consider, because our second assignment in this course is going to encompass all of these qualities. And of course, you're not necessarily, if we're scaling ourselves from 1 out of 10 and 10 is the highest, a 10 in all of these areas. But a great thing that leaders do is continuously challenge yourself to grow in the areas where you still need growth in. And so we're going to do that with assignment 2 in this course by giving you opportunities to work in small groups and engage in all of these elements. But for right now, let's go back to the Mentimeter and visit the transformational leadership and then this section as well. So let's see here. If I can go forward. Okay, so you have in front of you on my screen is a 2x2 grid, and you're going to look at those 6 areas as characteristics of transformational leaders and engage with it on your end with that same code of 36852211. And it is going to give us our plot line for if as a group, we are more concerned with people or production. So let me give you a minute to get yourself logged back into Mentimeter and use that code to look at where you fall on letting group members know what is expected of them, being helpful to people in your work group, emphasizing meeting deadlines, being willing to make changes, seeing to it that people in the group are working up to capacity, and doing little things to make it pleasant to be a member of the group. 3 of those fall heavier on the concern for people, and 3 of them fall heavier for the concern for production. And the visual is going to let us know where we fall as a group here in the course.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
What is meant by concern for production and for people with respect to each of the stated variables? Because I don't know, for example, let group members know what is expected of them. Then I have to rate the concern for production and then concern for people. I don't get the...
Okay, so tell me what you see on your screen right now, not on my screen.
Yes, for example, the first question, let group members know what is expected of them.
Yes.
Then he is asking me to rate the concern for production and concern for people for this variable.
So you'll choose which you believe that falls closer to. Does it fall when we're letting group members know what's expected of them? Do you think that that leans more towards as a leader having a concern for people, or as a leader having a concern for production?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I'm sure everyone else was wondering the same thing, so thank you for asking. And again, on my screen, we'll be seeing everyone's results for each of those questions. I'm going to give a few more people a chance to answer. Interesting. I think there's still a few more people that either haven't logged in or need to look at each one of those areas and select. If I'm looking at number 4, be willing to make changes. Is that something that as a leader is done because I have concern for the people or because I have concern for production? We are really hanging in that quadrant. I'm gonna let you go ahead and finish where you're at on it. Go ahead and keep putting in your results.
Question: Nelson Mandela could be selected also as one of the transformational leadership as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. That would be an excellent example. Okay, so I'm going to, when we look at question 5, see to it that people in the group are working up to capacity. We had one person who definitely recognized that as being a concern for people, and the remainder of you stayed tighter to concern for production. And it actually is the capacity piece is related to production, but I would love to hear from anyone to share how it could also represent concern for people.
I think this point is related to the distribution of work.
Yes, it is
Okay,
related
because
to
as a
distribution.
leader, I should ensure there is a fair distribution of work. I cannot put load on single person because I know he is good and he can deliver, and leave the others, empty, not doing something productive.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it will be unfair.
Okay, I'm going to let you in on a little hint here. Number 3, number 1, and number 5 are all written from the concern for production perspective. And so number 2, being helpful to people in the work group. Number 4, being willing to make changes. Number 6, doing little things to make it pleasant to be a member of the group. Those are all more concerns for people. You want the environment or the experience of the work to be collaborative or to be enjoyable, to be a welcoming environment to your people, helping them feel valued as an individual as much as an employee. Like as much as it's about as much of caring for the person, the human side of it, as it is caring for what that person can do for your company as the production side of it. It's not a make wrong for one or the other. You're looking for a balance, right? You're looking for, if, say, for example, I work with a group of 5 people, and the 5 people in my group are all production focused, and I am the only like person focused or human side of the work environment focused, then I might feel like I'm not being as valued or not recognized for bringing that human side to my group. I could also be very frustrating for the group that I'm working with if they're all productive oriented, because I would be the one that would want to stop to have conversations about things, or I would want to make sure everyone was taken care of in the meeting before the meeting began. So my time, the way I would focus my time might be a little different than the rest of my group. So adding value and recognizing the group members that I would be working with on having a concern for production versus a concern for the people is really important, especially when I'm in a leadership position. And I've had plenty of times where I've been facilitating strategic planning for a group of leaders, and when they tend to weigh heavier for production versus people, or people versus production, a part of my role in facilitating is bringing to the conversation how they're going to let their people feel valued, or how they're going to help their people meet those meeting deadlines while being able to make changes that need to take place and might alter time. For those are examples for that. So do you see the benefits, pros and cons of group dynamics for people who lead with concern for people, that human side, or people who lead with concerns for production, and how we need the ebb and flow? In this group, we have a strong production, which makes sense because you're in master's program, and so you want to make sure that you're getting the work done, but you're also not completely negating the value of people. You're just clustered in that same quadrant on the grid. That will make for a very productive group. Any questions about that grid?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you once again. When you are grouping, you talked about number 1, number 4, and number 6, as it relates more, or it concerns the people.
Hold on
And,
one. It's not, no, it's the odd numbers, 1, 3, and 5 are related to production, and 2, 4, and 6, the even numbers, are related to people.
okay.
Okay.
And, okay. And but looking at number 4, be willing to make changes. I think it can also be applicable or applied to production. And because in production, I felt that if a manager or a foreman is not producing or is not capable, or his capacity is not much, there could be need for a change. So it can as well work in both sides, either as consigned to the people and or as well consigned for production. I'm just thinking that now.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that thinking. So let me give you a scenario here. When we look at being willing to make changes, if we're working together and we have a deadline to produce a certain number of items that it's a hard deadline, and I come in to do the work, you're ready, you have everything lined up, assembly line for us to go through and put the product together so that our production is complete in the timely manner that's been set forth. But I come in and I say, oh, well, hold on a minute. If we made this change, it would be a better product. And it would mean taking some time out of our already set deadline to make that better product. I think that it's quite possible that there would be some frustration on your end because you're looking at meeting that production, that deadline, and I'm coming in changing things at the last minute. So when we look at a person who, when we look at being willing to make changes, that's more of a concern for people because it speaks to flexibility. It speaks to honoring the value that people bring. And sometimes it is that we can't make those changes now. It'll have to be in the next round because this deadline is a hard deadline and we can't make that deadline with the number of products that we need to have. But sometimes we have to be able to hear that person and understand in order for them to move forward and contribute to the production and meeting the deadline. Does that help understand that one?
Yes.
Yes.
But yes, thank you very much. But in other words, it means that the priority there is the deadline.
If the approach that you were bringing from the production side of things, yes. Now, to throw a little wrench in the thinking, if we were going to say that quality was first and foremost, like one of our pillars of our organization, and I came in with we need to make this change because of quality, and you were on the production focus and getting the job done for the number of products for the deadline, then we may go with my change because we would rather have less items produced by the end of that production deadline and have a higher quality product because it's one of the pillars of our organization. Does that, that's another option too. But when we look at being willing to make changes, we generally look at that from that humanistic side of being flexible, of taking time to talk out our thinking, to ensure that we're on the right track, to alter the streamlined approach to the end in some way.
Yes,
Good question. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yes, very clear. No, you're clear.
Yes.
I understand it better now.
Good. Good. And that's why I did this. I really, to be honest with you all, I thought about what kind of visualization to use for this experience, and went with the 2x2 grid because I wanted you all to see how it can be very different when you have hundreds of people that would complete this. You would be surprised that we would have more that would show up on the concern for people versus concern for production, or concern for production versus concern for people. There would be a broader span of where everything's showing up. When I show you visually the results as you're doing it, it tends to also taint what you choose for where your thinking is represented. So good discussion though. Any other questions about this one? Okay, I think we have one more now. Okay, so we talked about some examples of transformational leaders, and I also gave you a few of the keywords, but there's a lot more to it. So this should give you an opportunity to offer your descriptions of a transformational leader that you've experienced. So how would you describe that person?
Should we write? Should we talk? Should we what?
It should be in your app. You should write it into your app.
Okay.
And it will show up on the screen so that we can all
sorry, I'm
personalities and differences. Okay. I got to contribute to this one too. I like the emphasis on ethical, the visionary. It's interesting to that someone selected beloved, because I think that maybe the person doesn't always feel beloved. So that's a good reminder for our transformational leaders. Charismatic, charisma, persistence, resilience, motivating, believer, they have faith in their mission, absolutely. Idealized influencer. It's interesting because most transformational leaders, I've read a few of their autobiographies or biographies, and they really don't want to be an influencer. That's not what they intended to do when they started out necessarily. Adaptable, determined, a backup for their team. Does anything stand out to any of you here? Or do you have a little bit of a story behind your transformational leader you were thinking of when you typed these words?
Can you repeat your question again?
Yes, I was asking, do you have a little bit of the story behind who you were thinking of as a transformational leader that made you think of these words?
Yes, sure. Actually, I was putting one in front of my eyes, and then I was just thinking why he is a transformational leader. Why people would select him or follow him, who are inspired by him like that.
And is there a draw to you as to why you're inspired or drawn to them?
Sorry, is there what?
I said, is there something that like you're specifically drawn to in this transformational leader? Like, how does it help you be a better leader?
No, actually, he did not inspire me myself, but he inspired hundreds and millions actually in Egypt here.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have anything in mind?
I can share with my experience, and currently I'm mostly inspired by the president of my country. I'm from Ukraine. So President Zelensky is the one who inspires the whole our nation. So he's a leader for all of us.
He is transformational as well. Yes. Excellent. So so I have to, this is a little bit of a digression. So just real quick, any of you have access to or have seen the program? Oh, now I'm going to forget the name of it. There's a program on American TV right now, Jack Ryan. It's based off of a series of books from an author. Are you familiar with that at all, any of you?
For me, no.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick so it's on its second series, and it took a little bit of time for the second series to come out, and it's so interesting because these books were written at least 10 years ago. But if you look at the history of the Ukraine and Russia and the Soviet Union, it was prevalent in a lot of historians' minds. And so this author wrote this series of realistic fiction at the time, but now this television program has released the second season, and it is all about what your great president is doing in the Ukraine to save the country. And it's just the alignment, even though it's realistic fiction, it's not true. I think helps open up people's minds to what a transformational leader he is, and the decisions that have to be made, and how that all comes about amongst the leaders that are involved. So it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you all if you don't have access to the program, but it really spoke to me when you shared that, because it is so true. And that program is describing his leadership abilities and how transformational he is right now for the people of his country, and for all of us, I mean, for other countries too. America is just like so impressed with his abilities and perseverance and resiliency and vision and determination. And for something that wasn't even true years ago to be a television program at the same time, it obviously causes us to fact check, but also helps us to see those elements of transformational leadership more clearly. So thank you for sharing that one.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. I won't bore you anymore with with my television habits. Okay, so this is an excellent representation of our transformational leaders, and whether there's someone who we've reached out and physically touched in our world, that close to us in our world, or someone who we just have the greatest admiration for, these characteristics that we see in front of us, these descriptions, are elements that you have to decide when you're making leadership choices as a leader. If you're working on being transformational, or if you are potentially not offering as much as you could offer to the people that you're leading, and the great responsibility that comes along with that. Okay, so now we go into the next section. Why would anyone want to be led by you? And I believe that this is another text entry, and I thought it was a great way to get more ideas from each of you about how you see yourself as a leader. Because who is saying what? It's just giving us the opportunity to learn about what leadership attributes we have here in the course with us. So I am going to type in the code. And if you just briefly describe why anyone would want to be led by you. It's not going to show your name, so don't worry. Integrity is a great value to have as well. Inspiration and motivation. Non-judgmental. Looking at the patterns to be a change agent. I have to move my screen over a little bit because there we go.
Professor.
Yes.
What if I don't want to be a leader in this current time? I mean, it's a time of my life that I'm losing the focus everywhere. Like I'm losing my compass.
Okay.
So I don't want anyone to lead to follow me.
Okay, I am glad that you said this because we have something in common. I spent most of my career not wanting to be a leader and constantly being put in leadership roles. So I can completely empathize with you. And what I can tell you is, go ahead.
Okay, like sometimes I want to be in a leadership position. Okay, but currently as in nowadays, since 2-3 months or 6 months, I just, you know, facing difficulties in my life. I know what I'm saying is personal, but I just don't want to have the responsibility of others on me, on my shoulder. I don't want to carry this responsibility.
So I appreciate that, and I completely understand. Trust me. And what I can say is that often there is something within you that can't not step up to the leadership because the fulfillment won't happen if you don't. Another alternative to that, though, is you can do it very differently. So, for example, I spent a lot of years leading where I felt like it was so much pressure and it was very draining for me. It took a lot out of my personal life, a lot away from my personal life. And So in reflection for me, I decided to walk away from the way that I was experiencing my leadership. Like, so I walked away from that specific position, not because I wasn't capable of doing it, and not because the people that I was working with were not good people, but for me, being a transformational leader, it is about something within me that feels differently, and I have to listen to that. And so I left a tenured position, a very secure position that I had for many, many years for a Research One university, and started my own nonprofit. And I'm still a leader, and I still have people following me, but it is fulfilling me in a way that my last work was not anymore. So it does not mean that the people who are still leading in that last work that I was doing aren't doing a good job of it or aren't doing important work. It's just for me and what I needed for that work-life balance, and to be able to continue to use my leadership skills, but in a very different way, so that now I feel fulfilled instead of drained from it. So it really is about listening to your gut, listening to what you know you can contribute, and what your end goal is. I think for me, being a grandmother now especially, I had that fervor in me when I was a mother, but being a grandmother now, really thinking about my legacy and what I want to model for these young girls that are growing up now in a very different world than I grew up in. I had to really take a lot of things into consideration about what I was showing them was important to me based off of the leading that I was doing and the work that I was doing. So I'm very excited for you, even though it doesn't feel like an exciting time of not wanting to lead. But I can tell you, you are going to be exactly where you need to be and make the decision that's right for you, and you'll be able to feel it because you'll feel that fulfillment from it.
Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, I lost the connection for some time, but I managed to get the last couple of sentences. But definitely, I will get back to see and view this lecture again.
Yes, yes. Well, essentially, like, it's about that fulfillment, and you'll make the right decision for you in the point in time that you're in. And just think about the legacy you want to leave. So many great examples here. This is what I love about Mentimeter, is I can take these results and everything that's being written right now, not just what's currently on the screen, will be in that representation in the Moodle under our second week session for Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. So I will move this document over there afterwards. But just to wrap up this section, we had some one-worders. I saw visionary earlier, humbleness, being adaptable, and fair attitude, practicing fair attitude, and having positive energy, integrity, inspiring. Okay. Excellent. I think that this list is going to grow as we continue throughout the weeks as well. So let's go into this dark side, the the negative leaders, when we experience some narcissism, And when we look at that manipulation or cynical view of human nature, putting one's self or interest over their moral behavior, when we look at low concern for others or impulsive behaviors, lack of remorse or guilt. Some examples were Adolf Hitler, Jim Jones, and the flaws that negative behaviors have is the rigidity, the callousness, the cruelty, corruption, and incompetence. And I wanted to bring this, and we had conversations with this, with the with this triangulation of negativity. And so what I wanted to bring in was a brief video of the dark side of leadership.
started as my college project, and we now sell our wheel covers all around the world.
And I am going to end this a little bit earlier. We won't watch the entire thing, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of it so that you can be motivated to go back and take a view on this negativity of leadership, the three triad.
Leadership. When we hear that word, our minds tend to conjure up visions of strong, positive individuals who have profoundly impacted those around them. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mandela. These are just a few of the individuals we point towards as the epitome of positive leadership. Yet leadership is not always positive, and it has another side, negative leadership. Numerous scholars have referred to negative leaders as the dark side of leadership. Located in the dark side is destructive leadership, which encompasses several styles of leaders. Among these are abusive, toxic, narcissistic, petty tyranny, and pseudo-transformational. All of these leaders that reside in the dark side are known to belittle, demean, insult their employees. Have you ever met a destructive leader? Have you ever worked for a destructive leader? How about this gentleman? You may recognize him, Sith Lord Darth Vader from Star Wars. Now, there's little argument that Darth Vader was not a leader. I mean, after all, he was the supreme commander of the Imperial forces. But he's not necessarily a leader you want to report to, and he's certainly not a leader you want to become. But before we get into all that, let's take a little deeper dive into the definition of destructive leadership and look at some of the behavioral traits we may find in these types of leaders. Destructive leadership is defined as behavior by a leader that is perceived to be harmful, intimidating, or abusive towards their followers. These individuals are known to demonstrate unwarranted negative behavior towards their employees, well, honestly, simply because they can. An article in the Global Business and Research Management stated that destructive leaders are psychologically harmful to their employees. They disrupt the workplace. They lower job performance, and they increase employee turnover. When we look at the behavioral traits of destructive leaders, some of the things that we'll see consist of arrogance, the need for power, bullying, inability to inspire creativity, and lack of tolerance for errors. So I asked you earlier if you have ever worked for a destructive leader. If you said yes, well, you have been to the dark side. If you display these traits that I just mentioned, well, bad news, you are the dark side. And that brings us to the Vader effect. The Vader effect consists of reporting to a supervisor that resides on the dark side of leadership. That individual we love to hate, who can make or break our day, and often makes our job a living hell. So let's take a look at a couple scenarios that fit the Vader effect and see if you can relate to any of them. In one scene of Star Wars, we see Darth Vader force choke a member of the council because he found his lack of faith disturbing. Arrogant move. Lord Vader did not like anybody questioning him. When we question or disagree with a destructive leader, we often earn the title of traitor, someone who is dissenting from the ranks. And this is unacceptable in the mind of a destructive leader. Therefore, they will seek ways to retaliate. Examples of retaliation can consist of lack of communication, talking bad behind your back, and finding ways to push you out of the ranks. Vader was seduced by the dark side because he was hungry for power, a typical narcissistic personality. It is the need for control and recognition that drives the narcissist to seek the role of leadership. Narcissists believe they are the most important and smartest person in the organization, and therefore they want to rule the empire just like Vader. Narcissists will find ways to expose your weaknesses. They have little empathy for their employees, and they often have a lot of enemies among their subordinates, but they don't realize it, well, because they're a narcissist. Third, we look at inability to inspire. In the workplace, we want our employees to be creative. We want them to be out-of-the-box thinkers. But employees worry if they go too far out of the box, they may suffer the wrath of their supervisor. It's hard for an employee to be creative when they have Darth Vader breathing down their neck. When we stifle creativity in the workplace, we are actually stopping production and not allowing our businesses to expand. Bullying. Bullies do not like competition, and they will work hard to eliminate anybody that could expose them for who they really are. Bullying from a supervisor consists of interpersonal aggression that occurs frequently on a daily basis. Bullies also don't like apologies. They're not interested in your mistakes. They want you to know that they are ruthless and they should be feared. Remember when Nita accidentally lost track of the Millennium Falcon and he apologized to Darth Vader? Well, Vader said, "Apology accepted," as he proceeded to murder him with a force choke.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there because I think that's a good place for you to be motivated to go and watch the next 7 minutes because it's very insightful in not only what the dark side of leadership is, but how you can survive and thrive within it once you recognize the characteristics of leaders who are dark side negative leaders. Now, if you have those traits, then it'll be good for you to watch the rest of the video because you'll see that knowledge is power and people can have strategies to be able to approach the way that you are negatively leading. So what I want to do here is go ahead. We have about 4 minutes left. So a couple of things that we did not cover today, which I will begin back up at on next week, is characteristics of followers, situational factors, and what role do the different kinds of intelligence play, as well as styles of leadership. And then the connection work throughout will stay the same for next week, so you can get a start on it if you would like to. But none of those areas will impact your selection for the Chapter 2 and 3 quiz for this week. So this week, this quiz is going to have point values added into the Moodle gradebook, which means I have to set up the Moodle gradebook. But what I want you to do is select 2 of the above 6 questions, and you're going to do a written response. So that means that I am going to be grading each of these quizzes, each of your quizzes, manually. So if it allows any kind of point, like if it says 0 points at the end, don't panic. It doesn't mean you have 0 points. I am going to do the grading for it, and I will change the grading not only in the form that you're doing this quiz, but also in the Moodle gradebook. So you'll select 2 questions and just write out your written response in relation to our learning so far. If you select a question that is more based on the areas that we haven't covered yet, the notes are there if you're most interested in that and want to select one of those questions, but there's plenty here for you to choose from. That quiz is in the Moodle now for you to go into that announcement page where it has the, let me see if mine is still open. It closes me out so fast all the time. When you go in here to topic 2, 23rd of January, and you select week 2 outline, you scroll down and you can't miss it. You can use your QR code to do it on your phone, or you can select the link here and it will take you into the quiz itself. It does have those 6 questions for you to choose 2 from. You'll put your name in and you'll do your written response. And again, if it says 0 out of 10, don't worry about it. I'm going to go in at the end of the week and manually grade it. These aren't due until the day before our class. I think I put the due date down here, the 29th of January. So I'll go in and grade what's been completed, and then I'll go in and do another round of grading late Sunday night for me, which would be your Monday morning. So don't worry if there's a 0 there. If there's a 0 there with feedback from me, then we need to talk. But if there's just a 0 there, that means that I did not grade your quiz yet. Any questions on the quiz? Okay. So remember, we stopped here at the dark side. Your to-do for this week is going to be to watch the last 7 minutes of that video, to go in and begin your connection work by answering these questions. And remember, I'm not collecting that. But if you want to wait until next week to do that, that's fine, because we're going to keep the same one for next week. And then there's one other thing I needed to tell you before you logged off. Oh, I know. Let me go up here. Nope. Yeah. Why is it not showing up? Hold on. Because I'm in the wrong thing. Here we go. Sorry, guys. I always get nervous when I keep you over time. I apologize. So I have started to lay out the course outline. And of course, as soon as I start to lay out the course outline, we have a conflict. Right here, February 6th, my granddaughter's having major surgery. And so at the end of your chapter 2 and 3 quiz, I'm adding a question that gives you the option for us to either meet in replacement of the 6th of February to meet on Saturday, the 4th of February, same time, 9 o'clock my time, or to give you that time to work on your solo projects, which will be coming up on the 6th of March, assignment 2. So next week, I'm giving you details about assignment 1 and assignment 2. But this week, in the end of your chapter 2 and 3 quiz, I'm adding a question for your preference of meeting on the 4th of February, that's a Saturday at 9 a.m., or taking the 6th of February to work on your solo projects, because it is going to be a time-intensive project. You can go ahead and take a look at this as much as you would like. It's on the course goal page, but just know that this date is going to change depending on the results that I hear back from you all. So next week, we're going to do an explanation of the upcoming team projects and solo projects, as well as finish up chapter 2 and chapter 3. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay, I am going to stop sharing my screen, I think. Yes. Yay. Okay. So thank you for all of your learning today. Thank you for all of your contributions today. If there is anything that you want to hang on the line for a few minutes, I don't have another meeting for about 10 more minutes. So I'll hang on with those who might have additional questions, but otherwise, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your week and whatever it brings you.
Thank you, Professor. Hope
Thank you
your
very much.
granddaughter feels better.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Professor.
Have a nice
Thank you,
weekend.
everyone.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Love starting my Mondays out with you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.